Firstly, let me say this, don't play with the Holy Spirit. For those of you who don't know who this Holy Spirit is, you need to know. Because for the last few days, like, no, I had to minister, but for some reason, I don't know where I come up with the 24th and the 26th. So, yesterday or day before, Pastor reminded me that it's Wednesday. But long before that, inside of me, burning away, eating away. How do you add value? You know, I want to tell people something that could build, could take them to that place that God wants them to be. So, lo and behold, Pastor said Sunday, some people could sit down and make up a message. So, your boy, I started to write, reach probably one paragraph and sit down there and watching this thing and so confused, don't know what to write. I was like, God, who is this? And he was like, but I never tell you to write nothing. And this is like yesterday, I tell you all about that. And after yesterday, I didn't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I don't know. And just busy and frustrated. And it's like, you see me? Wherever it is, it is. I tell Pastor last night, actually, that Pastor, I'm going to be so short that you might have to turn into a prayer service. But lo and behold, you have to wait on God and he talk. And when he talk, it is be real nice. He should go on. I was going to tell you thanks for praying, because at the end of my topic, I was actually going to ask you to pray. But you pray exactly the prayer that I was going to ask you to pray. Understand who the Holy Spirit is?
Yes, yes.
I sure she don't know what I'm going to say, but she pray exactly the prayer I was going to ask her to pray. So that's really interesting. So back to the topic, when I sat down and I wrote out what God had me to see, it started to come back to my remembrance about Trisha's message 2 Sundays ago, where she talked about overcoming through discouragement, and she went on to give a nice explanation. And so Trisha, I went back and I watched your message, because I don't know why it was on my mind. And you said something. You said that God wanted the temple to be built, but first the wall had to go up to protect it. And that stand out. I was like, but that's not what, that wasn't even the main point. That had barely nothing to do with Trisha's topic. But that's what stood out to me, and I was like, okay. And then God had me to think back now about what Pastor preached on Sunday, about the ministers and all these things and the different portfolios. And then my topic tonight is about the church. As it just the church. So I was like, but that's funny. And then when Nazmoon pray, it's like, my goodness, shut him out and let's let God have to see what he had to see. Because I trying to figure out, sometimes we just do that. We so want to figure out things for God now. Shut up yourself and let God talk. So tonight my topic is the church, and I have a little slight note here. I'll make it stick in. I stick it. Oh, all right. Now we get to go there. So the church was born primarily out of Christ's total self-giving for salvation. That's where the church, or this body of believers, that's where it all began. When Christ gave up his right to live so that we could gain life. And the person who write this is actually a citation, so they didn't cite it properly, so I don't put it all up as CCC. I don't know if it's civilian or whosoever, but CCC wrote this statement that I read in here. Origin and growth of the church is symbolized by the blood and water that gushed out of the side of Christ when he was crucified. For it was from the side of Christ as he slept the sleep of death upon the cross that there came forth the wondrous sacraments of the whole church. Even as Eve was formed, you're going to swap your Wi-Fi? Right. Guys, give you a second there. I think the internet gave me trouble. No, it's not showing yet. So it's switching, right? Right, so we shouldn't have no connection problem, or you shouldn't see me drop again. So as Eve was formed from the sleep of Adam from his side while he was asleep, so too was the church birthed when Christ was asleep on the cross. Well, we know it as he died. We say he died, but he actually chose to give up his life at that moment. So tonight's scripture, we're looking at Isaiah 62, verse 10 to 12. I will read it, right? Go through the gates, prepare the way for the people, build up the highway, take out the stones, lift up a banner for the peoples. Indeed, the Lord has proclaimed to the end of the world, say to the daughter of Zion, surely your salvation has come. Behold, his reward is with him, and his work is before him. And they shall call them the holy people, the redeemed of the Lord. And you shall be called, sought out, a city not forsaken. Now this scripture, every time I read it, I saw something more about the church. So tonight I'm just going to basically touch the scripture, because the scripture came down from Isaiah actually prophesying. Before this, he was prophesying who Christ will be, how he would come, all of that, how it will go. And then this is where he made this statement actually foretelling about this sort of people, which we later will learn, or we will later call the ecclesia or the church. So we see that this is actually about 700 years before Christ actually came on the scene, that Isaiah actually say who or what the church will be. And then he went on to tell about certain characteristics that the church should have or would have at all time back to Christ. So I'll try to break down as best as possible, and if anybody, feel free to stop me, and I will try to explain as best as possible if I lost anybody, right? So we see that he said, go through the gates. The gates here signify a change in location or a shift. So somehow the next, now you have a different dynamics. So you go through into a different place. When you enter through the airport in a country, you enter into a next country in a next land now. So basically, that's the easiest and simplest way to think about it. When you walk through that gate in customs or airport authority or whosoever it is, you're in a different territory. So this gate that he was talking about is not a physical gate, however, it was a spiritual gate that we have to walk through. Also, a gate would imply that there is some fencing or some form of security, and the gate is the way through, right? So apart from the gate signifying we change in location, it also signifies some level of security. So that's the first thing about the church. The church is both in a different location and it's secure in a spiritual location that is not a physical location. The church don't exist in a physical location. We show forth spiritual things physically, but the church is a spiritual being. And I would get to that, I can make that statement, right? See, to prepare the way. Those who are within the gate, it is your duty or your responsibility to actually offer the safety to people. If you found a way or to be safe in a time of chaos, and you don't call out to people and say, hey, come, I find a way, you're a wicked person. I think most would agree with that. And you say to build up the highways, we should make a clear and easily identifiable path to this gated community that we find, this place that God has prepared for us, which we call the church. It shouldn't be having obstacles. It shouldn't be difficult for somebody to come and be part of the church. Not part of the building, not part of the organization, not part of the crowd, but part of the church. And it is our responsibility to do that because it's we the people have to build up and not somebody from outside coming to build up. We have to build up. And that's why we at Word and Spirit Ministry, we actually taking that extra push to go virtual and all of that. And Pastor is telling me plenty time, boy, I don't understand plenty, but I trust all you. But we taking that push because it is our duty to make it possible for people to actually find that comfort that we have or we claim that we found. The Lord has proclaimed, that is verse 11. So when we find that, we see that the church is being attacked or the church is being looked at, the church have to be attacked and the church have to be looked at because God just put a bullseye on the church. He making sure everybody can see the church. The good one, the bad one, you call yourself the church, he's making sure you can be seen. So he proclaimed that, you know what, come and see this place. So the church actually have a bullseye on it, and it is proclaimed to the world. That's why if you recognize, even somebody, an atheist, know what the church is supposed to do. Everybody know what the church is supposed to do. Because God has proclaimed that before even existence of the church. The next thing he said the daughter of Zion. So the Jewish people or Jerusalem was called Zion when they celebrated or gained victory that was given by God. But the church is likened to Jerusalem, but it's not Jerusalem, but it's not a replica as well. So how do you consider the church? The church is just another way. And we came out of the heritage of Jerusalem. So that's why we could celebrate the same victory that Jerusalem had when they were called Zion. But the thing is, theirs was in the past, ours is now and in the present and in the future. And part of the proclamation was that salvation is coming. The church should proclaim that Jesus is coming. Any church that don't proclaim that is not of Christ. Because we stand on the foundation that he is coming back for the church. And his reward is with him. So the reward that actually is coming with him is that he's coming to receive his church. And all of that and all of that. And we will touch on that as we continue to study Revelation. Some already was covered and some will continue to be covered. So I'm not going down that road at this time. His work is before him. We demonstrate this Jesus to the world. So we should add to his reputation. And that's how his works go before him. His reputation is what we do to represent him, because we are the representation of Christ upon the face of the earth. Right, so now let's tie it in back into the New Testament, because I like to go both old and new. So we see that this word ecclesia was actually first used when Jesus was having that discussion with the disciples, and he asked them, "Who do you say I am?" And Peter jumped up and said, "Well, thou art the Christ, the living Son of God." And Jesus went on to make the statement that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth is be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth is loosed in heaven. So that's the first time that word is actually used in the New Testament. But that word ecclesia is not, or it did not originate in that statement. That word existed way before. And the history of that word, ecclesia, is that it was a council, not just a council, but a chosen or a selected council to make decisions upon things concerning the land, concerning political matters, all of that. That's what the ecclesia of that time would do. So this is where we as a church step in now. We are the chosen people to be a council. So we just don't function and say we're going to church, or that's just a building. Word and Spirit Assembly is the organization. But we the people, we make up the church. I am not the church pastor, I'm not the church treasurer, I'm not the church. But together, we make up the church. Because it's a combination of, it's an assembly, it's a group of people, not just a person. No one person could be the church. Then what do we see next? So when Jesus actually made a statement about the church, no matter that the church is not physical, because nothing in that statement that was said before was physical, but everything was based on spiritual, because he said that, "Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed it unto you, but my Father who art in heaven." So the rock that which Christ is going to use is the fact that Simon, who later came Peter, actually was dependent on heaven. And that's the whole essence of the church. We depend on heaven. Everything we do, everything we say, we depend on heaven. Not just heaven, but on heaven and Christ and Him crucified, because that's the message or the gateway that we could access heaven through Christ. That's how Peter was able to hear from heaven, through Christ. Right, so just one little side note that I wanted to point out here as well. So we see that Jesus made a statement that the gates of hell shall not prevail against the church. But in Isaiah, we see that we say to go through the gate. So we see two different gates. So it always have contrast in everything we do. Is that either for God or you're against God? You're with the devil or you're with God? So it always have two options in anything we do. And we see that contrast happening. That if we within the safety, within that, we call it a gated community, that we call it church. I use a gated community because everybody can picture and understand what I'm talking about, this gated community, right? So we don't have to worry about the neighbors in the next village or the fellas who just go rob people. We don't have to worry about all of that because we're in the safety of this gated community. So this is Jesus saying that, you know what? So long as you're within my safety, you're within my church, the gates of hell and anything that comes through cannot affect you. And that's something that we have to come to that level of realization. So we don't allow things to bother us and things to bring us down, because we know that whatever have to come our way have to come through Christ to get to us. And the last thing, or my last point, is the church is given direct access to the throne room of God. It is by this we can pray and according to the will of heaven and see things change.